A cop chokes a nurse outside the ER and doesn't realize she's the hospital director's wife. But the real shock isn't who she's married to. It's how long he keeps his arm locked in place after the truth is right in front of him. Ask yourself this if you stepped outside after a brutal shift just to breathe. Would anyone believe you before you ran out of air? It's Colorado Springs. Night air like steel. The trauma doors seal behind Aaron Cross scrubs damp hands, still remembering blood and CPR. Sodium lights hum over the parking lot. She takes 3 steps toward silence and a shadow hits her from behind. Concrete to spine. Command in her ear. Don't move. Her badge swings useless as phones rise like rifles on a perimeter. Stay to the end, and you'll see how one moment becomes evidence, how patterns get exposed, and what accountability actually costs. If you're watching, hit like and comment where you're watching from. The parking lot lights and the raised phones did not come out of nowhere. They were the last link in a chain that started inside those glass doors, in a place where crisis was routine and control was oxygen. 36 hours earlier, Pikes Peak Trauma Center sounded like a battlefield that had been moved indoors. The ambulance bay coughed out patients in waves. Gurney wheels rattled over tile. Radios chattered. Overhead pages snapped with codes and room numbers sharp as commands. The air carried bleach sweat and the metallic bite of blood that no amount of sanitizer could fully erase. Aaron Cross moved through it with a calm that looked like confidence and felt like discipline. She had learned discipline in places where the sky turned orange for reasons that had nothing to do with sunsets. She had left the Army years ago, but the habits stayed. Scan, prioritize, act, do not waste motion, do not waste breath. A trauma tech jogged up beside her with a clipboard, and a face too young for the things he had already seen. Charge EMS is bringing in a rollover with ejection. 2 minutes out. One male, mid-20s, hypotensive. They say pelvis is unstable. Aaron did not break stride. Trauma 1. Tell blood bank we want a cooler on arrival. Call ortho and trauma surgery, and get me a pelvic binder now. He ran. Aaron cut through the hall toward the resuscitation bays, past the waiting room packed with tired eyes and plastic chairs, past the vending machines that ate dollars and gave back stale sugar. Families stood and sat and hovered at the edges, clinging to their phones like lifelines. A woman held a paper cup with both hands and stared into it as if the coffee might offer an answer. Inside Bay 3, the overhead monitor beeped with a steady impatience. A man lay on the bed, gray around the mouth, breathing shallow. 2 nurses worked him hands, quick voices low. Aaron leaned in, checked the chart, checked the lines, checked the face. She knew the look. The body giving up ground. What do we have? Metastatic cancer. Septic shock. Lactate is through the roof. Aaron nodded once. She placed a hand on the man's shoulder, not because it would fix anything, but because her hands needed to remember that the person under the sheets was still a person. Start norepinephrine. Call ICU and make sure they have a bed. And get his family in here. No surprises. She stepped out as another alarm blared. The ER never waited for you to finish one problem before it handed you the next. It stacked pain like sandbags. A scream cut down the hallway, raw and animal. A mother's scream. Aaron turned. A gurney came around the corner fast, pushed by paramedics who looked tight with urgency. A little girl rode it like a small storm. Eyes wide, lips, swelling skin, blotched hands clawing at her own throat. Anaphylaxis, the medic called, peanut exposure. Epi given 5 minutes ago, but she's still closing. The girl's mother ran alongside, hair half-pinned, coat open, face wet. Please, please, she can't breathe. Aaron matched pace with the gurney, dropped to the child's eye line as they rolled. Hey, look at me, I'm Aaron. Stay with me, okay? The girl's eyes flicked toward Aaron, terrified and searching. Aaron saw her own reflection in them, not as a nurse, not as a charge, just as another human being trying to pull someone back from the edge. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Like blowing out birthday candles. You can do it. The girl tried. Her breath hitched. Erin's hands were already moving. She checked the airway, watched the throat movement, listened for stridor. She signaled for oxygen, for nebulized meds, for a second dose ready if needed. Her voice stayed steady, measured the way a medic talks when everything else is on fire. Put her in Bay 2. Get respiratory in here. Draw up diphenhydramine and steroids. Keep the epinephrine nearby. The mother grabbed Erin's sleeve as they rolled. Is she going to die? Erin held her gaze. She did not promise miracles. She did not give false hope. She gave the only thing she could offer that mattered. Presence. We are on her, right now. Stay with me. We're going to keep her breathing. In Bay 2, the team moved like a practiced unit. Respiratory therapy snapped a mask into place. A nurse started an IV with a smooth push. Erin watched the girl's face, watched the chest rise, listened to the sounds that meant air was still getting through. She took the child's hand. Small fingers trembling and anchored her. You're doing great. Keep your eyes on me. The girl's breathing stayed thin, then began to deepen by degrees, as if her body was negotiating with the swelling. Blue faded from the lips. The panic in the eyes softened into confusion, then exhaustion. The mother sagged into a chair as if her legs had been holding her upright through sheer will. Oh my God, oh my God. Erin kept her hand on the girl's hand a moment longer than necessary. She felt the girl squeeze back, weak but real, and she let herself breathe once. She turned to the mother. She's responding. We're going to watch her closely, but her airway is opening. You did the right thing bringing her in. The mother's face collapsed into relief and tears. Thank you. Erin gave a small nod and stood. The adrenaline did not leave immediately. It never did. It pooled in her muscles and kept her moving, kept her sharp, kept her from thinking too hard about the times it did not work. Outside the bay, Nurse Lexi Morgan caught her by the elbow. Lexi had dark circles under her eyes and a ponytail that had been retied too many times. Erin, you're on your third double this week. Erin checked the board. New names, new rooms, new problems stacking like incoming rounds. We're short again. Lexi looked past her at the chaos. Short is not a plan. Erin's mouth twitched. It almost became a smile. It's the plan we got. Lexi lowered her voice. You were Army, right? Combat medic, long time ago. And you still act like you're in a field hospital. You never rotate out. Erin glanced down at her badge clipped to her scrubs, the laminate scuffed from 1,000 shifts. Erin Cross RN Emergency Department. Pikes Peak Trauma Center. In a tent you rotate because someone orders it. Here, the only order is the next alarm. Lexi's eyes softened, then sharpened again. You can't save everyone if you drop. Erin did not answer that. She had no clean response. She pulled a pair of gloves from the box and tucked them into her pocket. Go hydrate Lex. I'll cover your rooms for 10. Lexi started to protest. Erin cut it off with a look that carried a certain kind of authority, the kind that came from having held pressure on an artery while the world shook. Go. Lexi left. Erin returned to the line. By afternoon, the rollover arrived. Erin watched the trauma team swarm as the patient came in limbs strapped, pelvis-bound skin, pale and damp. Dr. Nathan Cross was not in the resuscitation bay. He rarely was. He lived in a different kind of war. He ran logistics operations, staffing the dull machinery that kept the sharp end from snapping. But Erin could feel his presence in the smooth arrival of blood products, in the rapid response of security, in the way the supply room stayed stocked, even when the hospital felt like it was bleeding resources. She saw him later through a glass wall on the 3rd floor, moving fast down an administrative corridor with a tablet in hand, scrubs under a coat, talking to someone on a headset. He looked like a man trying to keep a plane in the air with tools that were always a little too small. Erin knew that walk. She had seen it on officers, on senior medics, on commanders. The walk of someone who carried other people's emergencies like weight. She did not wave. He did not look down. That was how they worked. They met between crises, not during them. Near the end of that day, Erin caught a quiet minute at the nurse's station. The monitors kept talking. The intercom kept calling. But there was a thin sliver of calm, and her mind did what it always did in slivers. It wandered toward home, toward sleep, toward Nathan, toward the promise of a couch and silence. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from Nathan. "Long day. I'm stuck in meetings. You eating?" Erin stared at it, then glanced at the vending machine down the hall, the one that offered crackers, and regret. Working on it. She hesitated, then typed more. "You okay?" The reply came quick. "Fine. We had a security briefing with City PD. Also, there's a staffing gap on nights. I'm trying to plug it. Love you." Erin read it twice. Security briefing, City PD. She filed it away without thinking why. She tucked her phone back and stepped into another room. The next morning arrived without permission. Erin had gone home for a few hours, showered, slept in fragments, then returned before dawn because the schedule was broken, and she was one of the few people who could hold the line without falling apart. When the sun rose over Colorado Springs, it lit the mountains like a promise, and did nothing to soften what waited inside. Trauma does not care about scenery. A young man came in with a lacerated spleen from a bar fight. A woman arrived with chest pain that turned out to be a panic attack so severe it mimicked a heart attack. An elderly patient with dementia wandered off from a room and ended up near the ambulance bay, confused and furious, swearing at no one and everyone. Erin handled each one the same way. Slow voice, clear instructions, a hand on a shoulder when it helped, a firm boundary when it did not. In between patients, she found Nathan in the cafeteria for 5 minutes. He stood by a table with a coffee he had not touched, staring at his tablet. "You look like you slept in a closet," Erin said. Nathan looked up. His eyes were tired, but his smile was real. "I might have. We had a supply issue with airway kits. Fixed it. Also, 2 nurses called out tonight." Again, Erin took his coffee and drank a sip, grimaced. "This is not coffee. It's survival." Erin leaned closer, voice low. "Lexi thinks I'm going to drop." Nathan's expression tightened. The director of operations in him wanted to problem solve. The husband in him wanted to pull her out of the building and lock the doors. "You can take leave," he said. Erin shook her head. "Not when it's like this." Nathan watched her for a beat. Then he did the thing he always did when he could not change her mind. He adjusted the world around her. "Then I'm getting you a relief on your break tonight, and I'm asking security to do an extra pass near the ER entrance. We've had more incidents in the lot lately." Erin frowned. "Incidents? Nothing major. Mostly people sleeping in cars, a few arguments. Still, I'd rather not take chances." Erin studied his face. He looked like he was measuring something he could not say out loud. "You had that briefing with City PD," she said. Nathan nodded. "They're looking for someone. A suspect. They asked us to keep eyes open." Erin felt a small shift in her chest, the kind that comes before you know you are going to be busy. She did not ask more. In the ER, details mattered, but time mattered more. "I'll be careful," she said. Nathan reached for her hand, squeezed it once, then let go. "I'll see you later." Erin went back downstairs. Across the city, Officer Caleb Rourke started his day in a way that made him feel safe. Routine. Order. The cruiser smelled like worn vinyl and cold coffee. The radio hissed with a steady stream of calls that blended into one long pulse. His uniform was crisp. His boots polished, his belt heavy with tools that gave him authority and excuses. Rourke had joined the force young, hungry, convinced that control was the same as protection. He had loved training. He had loved the clarity of drills, the clean right answers, the feeling of being the one who decided what happened next. He did not love the parts that required patience. At a convenience store off Academy Boulevard, he sat in the lot watching people come and go. A man with a backpack, a woman with a stroller, a teenager with headphones who did not look up. Rourke watched hands. He watched waistlines. He watched eyes. His mind ran threat assessments the way other people ran playlists. A call came over the radio. Domestic disturbance verbal, no weapons seen. Rourke keyed in, Unit 12 en route. His partner for the shift, Officer Mason Trent, glanced at him. You always jump. Rourke's eyes stayed on the road as he pulled out. I respond. Trent shrugged. He was younger still, carrying the hopeful softness that the job tended to sand down. Some calls don't need a hammer. Rourke's jaw set. Some problems don't respond to whispers. They arrived at an apartment complex where two voices were already spilling into the hallway. A man yelling, a woman crying, a neighbor peeking through a cracked door. Rourke moved fast, shoulders squared. He knocked once, then once more hard. When the door opened, the man inside flared up, posture wide, fists tight. What? Rourke stepped in close. Step back, hands where I can see them. The man bristled. I didn't do anything. Trent tried to talk soft, voice palms open. Sir, we just need to make sure everyone's okay. Rourke's stare cut through him. Back up. The man took a half step. The woman behind him wiped her face, shaking. Rourke looked her over. No visible marks. He looked at the man again. You put your hands on her? No. Trent asked questions. The woman answered in fragments. The man swore, then calmed. It ended without cuffs, without a report, without blood. Trent seemed relieved. Rourke looked irritated. Trent glanced at him once they were back in the cruiser. See, no hammer. Rourke did not reply. His mind was somewhere else, stuck on the last time he had been embarrassed. 3 months ago, a wanted suspect had bolted during a stop. Rourke had chased boots, pounding concrete, lungs burning, and the guy had slipped through a gap in a fence like smoke. Back at the precinct, the captain had dressed him down in front of everyone. You let him go. You had him, and you let him go. You think the city cares about your excuses. The room had been quiet. The kind of quiet that feels like a verdict. Rourke had stood there face blank and swallowed the humiliation like a pill he could not spit out. He carried that moment the way some people carried old injuries. Not always aching, but always ready to flare when pressed. Later that afternoon, Rourke sat at his desk and scrolled through a bulletin that had come in from detectives. Kara Wainwright, 29, attempted murder warrant. Victim in critical condition. Knife attack after confrontation with an ex-boyfriend. The photo showed a woman with brown hair parted to the side, a narrow face, tired eyes that could belong to anyone who had not slept in days. Hospitals, Rourke thought. People run to hospitals when they are desperate. People hide in places where nobody questions chaos. He clicked through notes. Kara had no stable address, no working phone, no car registered. The kind of person who could vanish into a city and reappear only when she wanted something. A shift later, near 6 in the evening, the call hit his radio like a snapped wire. Unit 12. Possible sighting. Female suspect near Pikes Peak Trauma Center. Matches Kara Wainwright. Brown hair, medium build, dark clothing. Last seen on foot near the emergency entrance. Rourke's hand closed around the mic, then stopped. He pictured the suspect running back through the hospital doors, disappearing into crowds and corridors, leaving him with nothing but another lecture. He pictured the captain's eyes. He grabbed his phone. The suspect photo filled the screen. He studied it the way a soldier studies a map. He let the details burn in. Hair, face, build, the set of the mouth. Trent looked over. We calling for backup. Rourke's eyes stayed on the photo. If we call and she runs, we lose her. That's why we call, Trent said. So we don't make it worse. Rourke started the cruiser anyway. The hospital is a maze. She'll vanish. Trent's voice tightened. Or we go in smart. Rourke did not answer. The siren stayed off. The lights stayed dark. He drove fast without announcing it, like he believed speed was the same as strategy. Colorado Springs slid by in blurred storefronts and intersections. The sky had that late evening fade where colors drained out and everything started to look alike. Rourke's hand stayed steady on the wheel. His pulse did not. In another part of the city, Kara Wainwright moved like a person who had learned to be invisible. She kept her head down. She chose places where people did not look twice. She had slept in a laundromat for an hour, then in the back booth of a diner with her hood up until a waitress told her to leave. She avoided cameras when she saw them. She avoided cops when she felt them. Hospitals made sense. Hospitals were noise. Hospitals were strangers. Hospitals were doors that opened for anyone with a believable limp. She circled the edges of the trauma center as dusk thickened, watching the flow of people in and out, timing her choices. Inside, Erin Cross felt the weight of her shift settle in her bones. The adrenaline highs had burned off, leaving the ache underneath. Her feet throbbed. Her shoulders carried tension like armor that had never been removed. She signed off a chart, checked the board again, then looked toward the glass doors at the end of the hall. Outside the parking lot waited lit in hard pools of yellow. She could see the concrete pillar near the entrance, the one that held up the canopy. She could see cars moving slow. She could see people leaving, shoulders hunched, faces tired. Lexi appeared again, holding a bottle of water. "Drink. You look like you forgot you have a body." Erin took it, twisted the cap, drank. The water tasted like the first good decision she had made all day. "Thanks." Lexi leaned in quieter. Nathan really did ask security to do extra passes. They were here twice already. Erin's eyebrows lifted. "He's in problem-solver mode. He's in husband mode," Lexi said. Erin looked away for a moment toward the trauma bays. The monitors kept beeping. The doors kept opening. The work kept coming. "I just need 5 minutes," Erin said. Lexi watched her. 5 minutes becomes 15 if you stare at the sky. Erin's mouth curved, tired. "I won't stare long." She unclipped her badge, then clipped it back on, making sure it faced outward like a habit. She checked that her phone was in her pocket. She rolled her shoulders once, trying to shake loose the tension. Then she walked down the hall toward the exit. As she neared the doors, the cool night air pressed faintly against the glass, a promise of quiet. Erin pushed through, and the sound of the ER dulled behind her, muted by the seal of the building. Across the parking lot, a cruiser eased into the lot without lights, tires crunching slow over gravel near the curb. Officer Caleb Rourke sat behind the windshield for a beat, scanning the entrance, the shadows, the flow of bodies. Erin stepped out under the canopy and drew a deep breath. The air felt sharp and clean compared to the recycled hospital breath she had been living in all day. She took one step forward, then another, moving toward the open space where she could stand without anyone touching her, without anyone needing anything. Rourke's eyes locked on the figure in dark scrubs, brown hair, loose alone near the entrance. He glanced down at the photo on his phone, then back up at the lot, measuring distance and angles the way he had been trained. Erin took a third step, letting her shoulders drop as if the night could carry the weight for her. Erin's third step carried her out from under the canopy lights and into the open lot, where the air felt colder and wider. She let her shoulders drop just a fraction, as if gravity might finally take its hands off her. Across the asphalt, Caleb Rourke watched her through the windshield. The hospital entrance framed her like a target in a shooting lane. Dark scrubs in low light. Brown hair loose. Medium build. Alone. His thumb hovered over the radio mic. He did not press it. The cruiser door opened with a soft click that sounded harmless in the distance. Rourke stepped out and shut it with a careful push, as if noise itself could spook the suspect. He moved fast, but not loud boots, rolling heel to toe. The way he walked had a trained purpose, a forward lean that treated space like something to conquer. Mason Trent stayed near the cruiser for a beat, eyes tracking Rourke, and then the woman by the doors. Caleb Trent called low. Rourke did not look back. Trent followed the hand drifting toward his own radio, not quite sure whether he was backing up an arrest or trying to stop one. Erin tilted her head back and drew a slow breath. The sky over Colorado Springs was darkening into a deep blue, the mountains beyond the city turning to shadow. For a moment, the hospital behind her became muffled, the alarms and calls swallowed by glass and distance. She did not hear footsteps. She did not sense the shape closing in. A hand seized her shoulder from behind hard enough to jolt her spine. Before she could turn, she was spun and driven backward into the concrete pillar that held up the entrance canopy. Her back hit with a blunt crack, and pain shot up her ribs. Air blasted out of her lungs. A voice snapped into her ear, close and violent. "Do not move." Erin's hands rose instinctively, palms open, the way you do when you are trying to make a situation safer. Her brain searched for context and found none. A uniform, a badge, a gun on a belt, a man's forearm already sliding across her throat. Her eyes widened. "Officer," she tried to say, but the word came out as a breathless rasp. Rourke's forearm locked in tighter, pressing the soft tissue of her throat against the hard bone of his arm. Not fully crushing. Not yet. But close enough that each inhale turned into a fight. Erin's mind went to anatomy without permission. Trachea. Carotids. Vagus nerve. The places you never touch unless you want someone unconscious. She tried to speak again. "I work here. I am a nurse." "Shut up," Rourke said. The command had no question in it. No curiosity. It was the voice of someone who believed compliance was the only language worth hearing. Erin's badge swung forward on its lanyard, slapped lightly against her chest, and dangled between her and the concrete. The plastic card caught the yellow light and flashed her photo. Erin Cross, RN Emergency Department. She forced her right hand upward, fingers reaching for the badge. "Please look at my ID." Rourke's left hand snatched her wrist and wrenched it behind her back. Pain flared up her shoulder. Her knees bent. "Stop resisting," he barked. "I am not resisting." Erin choked. "I cannot breathe." Rourke tightened the forearm. Erin's vision pinched at the edges, glittering with static. The world narrowed to pressure and sound. Concrete cold at her cheek. The rough weave of his sleeve against her skin. The taste of copper rising in her mouth. From behind him, Trent's voice cut in urgent. "Caleb, slow down. Ask her. Just ask her." Rourke did not turn. Trent stepped closer and saw the badge swinging. He saw scrubs with the hospital logo stitched over the chest. He saw a tired woman, not a fleeing suspect. "Caleb, that looks like staff." Rourke's head twitched, but his arms stayed locked. "Suspect can steal scrubs," Rourke said. "Suspect can steal a badge. She is not walking away." Erin tried to twist her head enough to see him, but his hand pressed the back of her skull into the pillar, controlling her face like a lever. The move was practiced, efficient. The kind of hold you use when you have done it before. A car door slammed nearby. Someone's gasp carried across the lot. "Oh my God." Erin heard quick footsteps. A woman froze beside her car, hand over her mouth phone already lifting. "Hey, what are you doing to her?" More voices joined, overlapping. "She is in scrubs. That is a nurse. She is telling you the truth." Phones rose like a line of sights. Glass rectangles capturing a single angle of violence. The crowd formed a loose circle of perimeter without uniforms. Rourke's posture sharpened. He squared his stance, feet planted as if he expected the crowd to charge. His voice took on an official edge, louder now. "Back away. All of you. Back away, or you are obstructing an officer." No one moved, not at first, because they could see Erin's face pressed to concrete. They could hear the wet rasp of her breathing. They could see the red line forming along her neck where his arm had been. Erin pulled her free hand toward her chest, fingers clawing at the lanyard. She got the badge up, swinging it toward his line of sight. "Please, my badge. Call inside. Someone will tell you. Please." Rourke glanced down for half a second. His eyes flicked over the plastic card and the photo that matched her face. He saw it. The fact that he saw it was clear in the way his gaze hardened afterward. He knocked the badge aside with a sharp slap of his fingers. The lanyard whipped back against Erin's collarbone. "Stolen," he said. "Could be stolen." Erin's throat tightened against the pressure. The words that came out were broken. "It is mine. I have been in there all day. Ask anyone. Please." Trent's jaw clenched. He stepped closer, angling his body between Rourke and the crowd, trying to keep things from becoming a riot. "Caleb, verify first. Call security. Call the charge desk. You have her pinned. You have control. You do not need to keep squeezing." Rourke did not answer Trent. He spoke to Erin instead, voice low and furious, as if she were the one humiliating him. Stop talking. Erin's eyes watered. The air she pulled in came in thin threads. Her chest burned, her heartbeat loud in her ears. She tasted fear the way she tasted blood sometimes in the trauma bay, metallic and unavoidable. A man in a jacket pushed forward through the circle of people phone held up. "Sir, you are hurting her," Rourke snapped. "Back up." The man did not back up. "You are choking her." On camera. That word hit the air like a flare. Camera. Erin could not see much beyond the pillar and the edge of his sleeve, but she could hear the shift in the crowd when people realized what they were holding. Evidence. Not memory, not a story that could be dismissed. She heard someone say her name. "That is Erin. That is Erin Cross. She is ER." The voice was closer now, familiar. A hospital voice. A voice that belonged in hallways and nurses' stations, not in parking lots with a cop's arm on her throat. Lexi. Lexi pushed through the front edge of the crowd scrubs under a jacket, hair still damp at the roots like she had just washed it after shift. Her eyes locked on Erin and then on Rourke. "Get your hands off her," Lexi said, voice steady but shaking underneath. "She works here. She is charge." "That is Erin Cross." Rourke did not turn his head, but his shoulders tensed. "Ma'am, step back." "No," Lexi said. "I am not stepping back while you crush her airway." Rourke's voice rose. "Step back, or you will be detained for obstruction." Lexi took one step closer instead, hands raised, palms open like she was approaching a frightened patient. "Officer." "Look at her badge. Look at her. She is wearing hospital scrubs. She is not running. She is not fighting. She is trying to breathe." Erin tried to swallow. It hurt. Her throat felt thick as if it were already swelling. Rourke tightened again, just a little. Erin's knees buckled more. She braced against the pillar with a trembling hand, but her arm shook too hard to hold weight. Trent moved, reaching for Rourke's shoulder. "Caleb." "Enough. We can verify her without this." Rourke shrugged him off without looking. "Do not touch me." Trent froze. That single sentence carried rank without actually having it. It was the kind of reflex that made partners stop challenging. Erin's vision dimmed at the edges. Her hearing tunneled. Voices became distant, muffled, like she was underwater. She thought of her last patient. A man who had begged for air through a broken mask. A woman who had clutched her hand and whispered, "Do not let me die." Erin had answered them with calm, with skill, with care. Now she was the one begging, and the uniform in her ear did not care. Somewhere behind the glass, a janitor mopping the entry hall looked up and saw the cluster of bodies outside. He saw the angle of a woman pinned to a pillar. He saw the jerking motion of her chest. He dropped the mop and ran. At the nurse station, the janitor's shoes squeaked on tile as he came in breathless. "There is a woman being attacked outside the ER doors," he blurted. "A cop has her pinned. Call security. Call Dr. Cross." The unit clerk's face tightened. Hands moved. Phones rang. A security radio crackled. Outside, Erin's hand found the lanyard again and pulled. The badge swung forward, slapped gently against Rourke's forearm, as if the plastic could persuade him. "Please," she rasped. "Please look." Rourke's breath hit her ear. "Stop." Then he said low enough that only she and Trent might hear, "You are not getting away." Erin's eyes squeezed shut. Her body started to do what bodies do when oxygen becomes scarce. It conserved. It surrendered. Her fingers loosened on the lanyard. Lexi saw it. "She is going out," Lexi snapped. "She is losing consciousness." Rourke's arm stayed where it was. Trent's face changed. He reached for his radio and keyed it. "Dispatch Unit 12. We have a possible match at Pikes Peak Trauma Center. Need supervisor and hospital security, too." Rourke barked. "Cancel that." Trent stared at him. "Caleb, she is staff." Rourke's eyes finally cut sideways, a sharp glance. "You are not the one making the call." Trent's mouth opened, then closed. His thumb stayed on the radio, caught between orders and reality. The crowd pressed closer. A chorus of voices built angry and scared. "Let her go. You got the wrong person. She is a nurse. You are killing her." Rourke's stance widened as if he could brace against the will of the crowd. His voice rose over them. "Back away, now." No one moved. The phone stayed up, and then the glass doors behind Aaron exploded open with a force that made the metal frame rattle. A man in surgical scrubs sprinted out like he had been launched. No white coat, no tie, no clipboard, just speed and purpose. Dr. Nathan Cross crossed the threshold, and the night air hit him. He did not slow. His eyes locked on the pillar on Erin's face pressed to concrete on the forearm across her throat. His expression collapsed into something dangerous. Panic sharpened into fury. "That is my wife," Nathan said, voice cutting through the crowd like a blade. "Let her go." The words did something the crowd's voices had not. They landed with authority. Rourke's head snapped up. For the first time, his posture shifted. A flicker of uncertainty flashed across his face, fast and quickly buried. "Sir, step back," Rourke said. "This woman matches the description of a wanted suspect." Nathan took another step forward. His hands were empty, but everything about his movement signaled command. He had spent years running the machinery of a trauma center. He knew how to take control of chaos. "That woman, Nathan," said, voice tight as Erin Cross. "She's a registered nurse in this emergency department. She has been on shift since before dawn. You are crushing her airway." Rourke's jaw clenched. "I need to verify her identity." Nathan's eyes flicked to Erin's face. Her skin looked pale under the parking lot lights. Her eyes were unfocused. Her lips parted with each desperate pull of air. "You verify identity with questions," Nathan said, "not with your forearm on her throat." Rourke's arm did not move. Trent stepped in relief, and tension mixed on his face. "Doctor, she was a possible match. Caleb thinks." Nathan cut him off without looking away from Rourke. "You can think after she can breathe." Rourke's pride welded him in place. He had committed to the hold. He had done it in front of witnesses, in front of cameras, in front of a man whose voice carried weight. Backing down now would feel like failure. Erin's knees folded. Her body slid downward. Rourke tightened reflexively to keep control, forearm pressing harder to stop her from slipping away. Erin's chest hitched. She tried to inhale, and it caught halfway. Nathan saw it. The physician in him, the crisis manager in him, the husband in him, all converged into one clear conclusion. "She is losing consciousness," Nathan said. "Let her go, now." Rourke's eyes darted down to Erin's badge again, as if his brain was searching for an escape hatch. He looked at the photo. He looked at Erin's face. He looked at Nathan, and for the first time he seemed to register that this was not a civilian begging, not a bystander shouting. This was someone with institutional power. Someone who could make calls that mattered. Rourke's grip loosened a fraction. Erin sagged. Nathan stepped in fast, getting his hands under her arms to take her weight. Rourke held on another second, then released. Erin collapsed forward. Her legs did not catch her. Nathan did. She dragged air into her lungs in ragged gulps, the sound harsh and wet, like someone surfacing after being held under. Nathan cradled the back of her head with one hand and held her upright with the other. "I have you," he murmured, voice low, steady, the same voice he used on patients when he needed to anchor them. "You are safe. Breathe." Erin's hands shook. One clutched Nathan's scrub sleeve as if it were a rope. Rourke stepped back, hands dropping to his sides. For a moment, he just stared at the woman he had pinned as if his mind was catching up to his body. Then his defensive mask snapped back into place. She matched the description, he said, loud enough for the crowd and the phones. Brown hair, medium build, dark clothing. Suspect wanted for attempted murder. Nathan's head turned slowly, eyes blazing. "So you choke first and ask questions later." Rourke's jaw tightened. "I secured a potential suspect." Nathan's voice rose. "She told you she was a nurse. She showed you her badge. Multiple witnesses told you she worked here. My staff told you her name. I told you her name. And you kept your arm on her throat." The crowd murmured anger, rolling through it like heat. Lexi stepped closer, eyes locked on Erin's neck. Red marks were already blooming a line where the skin had been compressed. "Erin," Lexi said softly. "Erin, look at me." Erin tried. Her eyes flicked toward Lexi and then back to Nathan as if her brain needed proof that she was surrounded by familiar people. Nathan kept one arm around her and reached for his phone, with the other fingers moving fast. "Security," he said into the call. "Front entrance, now." Rourke lifted his radio. "Dispatch Unit 12. Situation under control. False alarm. Stand down on backup." Trent stared at him, disbelief flickering behind his eyes. Rourke did not meet his gaze. He turned toward the crowd instead and pushed his voice into the official register again. "All right, everyone. Disperse. There is nothing more to see here. Move along." A man at the front of the crowd, phone still up, laughed once short and sharp. "Oh, there is plenty to see, officer." Another voice called out. "What is your badge number?" A woman near the back shouted. "Say your name for the report." Rourke's face flushed, a heat rising under his skin. "If you have a complaint, file it through the proper channels," he said. "Stiff, now move." No one moved fast. The crowd stayed, phones steady, capturing his posture and his words, and the way he refused to look at Aaron again. Nathan guided Aaron toward the doors. Aaron's legs worked, but they worked like they belonged to someone else. Inside the lobby, security finally arrived at a run. 2 guards in black polos with radios crackling, eyes wide as they took in the scene. "Dr. Cross," one of them began. Nathan cut across him. "Get a room ready. I want her evaluated now. And I want an incident report started. Names of witnesses. Videos. All of it." The guard nodded, already moving. Lexi followed Aaron and Nathan inside, jaw clenched. She kept glancing back through the glass at Rourke in the lot, as if she expected him to come after them. In the parking lot, Rourke walked back toward his cruiser. His stride was tight, too fast, as if he could outrun what had happened by getting away from it. Trent followed, slower eyes on the crowd. "Caleb," Trent said, voice low now. "We should have verified. We should have slowed down." Rourke yanked the cruiser door open. "You saw the bulletin." "I saw the badge," Trent said. "I saw scrubs." I heard her voice. She was not running. Rourke slid into the driver's seat and slammed the door. Trent got in beside him, the silence between them thick. Rourke stared forward through the windshield. The crowd was still there, phones still raised. He could see his reflection in the glass, a uniformed figure under yellow light. He keyed his radio again, voice clipped. "Unit 12 clear." The radio crackled back with confirmation. Trent turned his head. "Caleb, those people recorded everything." Rourke's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "They do not understand police work." Trent did not respond. His eyes stayed on the crowd on the phones, on the way one woman in scrubs stepped away from the group and looked down at her screen with quick fingers typing. Inside the hospital, Aaron sat on the edge of an exam bed in an empty room near the staff corridor. A nurse brought an ice pack, then a blood pressure cuff. Someone shined a pen light into her eyes. Another nurse listened to her lungs and then gently touched the bruised skin along her neck. Aaron flinched at the touch. The flinch was involuntary, and it embarrassed her more than the pain. "Sorry," the nurse said quickly. "It is fine," Aaron whispered. Her voice came out rough, scraped. Nathan stood close, one hand resting on the bed rail, the other hovering as if he wanted to touch her, but did not want to startle her. "You are not fine," he said quietly. Aaron swallowed and winced. "I am here." Lexi leaned against the wall, arms folded tight. "He saw your badge," Lexi said. "He saw it." Aaron closed her eyes. When she did, she felt the pressure again, the way the world had narrowed to nothing but the need for air. Nathan's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, then looked up at Lexi. "Security is starting the report," he said. "They have witnesses. They are asking for copies of video." Lexi's eyes hardened. "They are already posting it." Nathan's face tightened. "What do you mean?" Lexi lifted her own phone screen, glowing. Someone in the crowd uploaded a clip. 20 seconds. It shows the hold, your badge. The way he knocked it away. Aaron's eyes opened. "No." Lexi nodded once. "Yes." Nathan took a slow breath. He did not speak for a moment. His gaze flicked to Aaron's bruised throat, then to her shaking hands, then to the door as if he could see through the walls to the parking lot. Aaron stared at the ice pack in her lap. The cold seeped into her skin, but it did not reach the place where the fear had lodged. Outside in the lot, the crowd began to thin, but not before more than one person tapped a screen and sent the video into the world. A notification pinged on Lexi's phone, then another. The view count climbed in small jumps that did not feel small at all. The view count on Lexi's screen climbed in fast, uneven jumps. 10,000, 20, 50. Each refresh felt like another set of eyes stepping closer to Erin's bruised throat. Erin sat very still on the edge of the exam, bed ice pack pressed to skin that had already begun to swell. Her voice had thinned to a rasp, like she had swallowed sand. A pulse throbbed under the red line on her neck. Nathan stood in front of her, hands planted on the bed rail, knuckles pale. He kept looking at her throat the way a trauma surgeon looks at an airway that might fail. Lexi held the phone out for him to see. The clip was short. No context, no explanation. Just the moment. Erin's body pinned to concrete. Rourke's forearm across her neck. Erin's badge swinging into frame. Her hand lifting it. The badge knocked away. The audio caught her voice on a broken inhale. "I work here." Nathan watched it once. Then again, as if the repetition might produce a different outcome. His jaw tightened with each replay. "Turn it off," Erin whispered. Lexi lowered the phone. She looked like she wanted to apologize for showing it, but she also looked like she was holding on to the only thing that made her feel less helpless. Security knocked and stepped in breathless radio crackling. "Dr. Cross, we have witnesses in the lobby." Several offered to send video. "We started an incident report." Nathan's head snapped toward him. "I want every name, every phone number. Get statements while the memory is fresh. And tell them the hospital will provide a secure way to submit footage." "Yes, sir." The guard hesitated, then glanced at Erin. His gaze softened. He cleared his throat. "Ma'am, I'm sorry." Erin did not answer. She kept one hand on the ice pack and the other on the edge of the bed to steady herself. Nathan lifted his own phone and stepped into the hallway. Erin heard him make the first call without needing to be close enough to catch every word. His voice was low-controlled, clipped into clean instructions the way it got when he was trying not to break. She heard two phrases carry through the doorway. "I need legal here," and "Do not talk to the press without me." Lexi stayed in the room, a silent guard at Erin's side. Her eyes flicked toward the door, then back to Erin. She looked angry enough to bite through metal. Erin tried to swallow and winced. "Stop looking at me like I'm dying," she said, the words scraped raw. Lexi's throat moved. She blinked hard. "You almost did." Erin's breath hitched. Her mind flashed to different walls, different lights, a different kind of screaming. The memory came sharp and bodily, like muscle memory trying to take over. She put both feet flat on the floor and pressed her palms down on the mattress, grounding herself. "I'm here," she repeated softer. "I'm here." Lexi nodded once, then looked away, as if she did not trust herself to speak. By the time Erin left the hospital, the lobby televisions were already running a local news station. The anchor's face was serious too, polished eyes wide in practiced concern. A banner crawled across the bottom of the screen in white text on red. "Nurse detained outside trauma center." Erin kept her head down as Nathan guided her through a side corridor and out a staff exit. The night air felt different now, less clean, more exposed. She kept hearing the crowd's voices layered over the hum of the city like a radio stuck between channels. In the car, Nathan drove with both hands locked on the wheel. The heater ran high, but Erin still felt cold. Her throat ached with each breath. She pressed the ice pack tighter and watched the streetlights slide across the windshield. Nathan broke the silence. "Did he say anything else to you up close? Anything you remember?" Erin stared at the dashboard. "He told me to stop talking. He told me I was not getting away, like I was already guilty." Nathan's jaw flexed. "Did he identify himself?" "No." "Did he read you your rights?" Erin gave a small, bitter sound that turned into a cough and then pain. She shook her head. "He did not ask who I was until you came out." Even then, he did not ask. He insisted on his version. Nathan's grip tightened on the steering wheel. He saw the badge. Lexi said he did. Trent saw it too. Erin leaned back against the seat, eyes closed. Every time she did, she felt concrete against her cheek. At home, Nathan helped her inside like she was a patient. Erin hated that. She hated being handled, hated needing support, hated the weakness in her legs. But her body did not negotiate. Nathan guided her to the couch, placed a blanket over her, then crouched in front of her and looked at her neck with the clinical focus he could not turn off. "I want you to drink water," he said. "Small sips. Then we will check your voice. If you feel dizzy, if you get a headache, if your vision blurs, you tell me immediately." Erin stared at him. "I'm not your case." Nathan's eyes flickered. The husband fought the administrator and the physician for control. "You are my wife," he said quietly, "and your airway was compromised." Erin's throat tightened in a different way. She took the glass of water he offered and sipped. It hurt. She forced herself to swallow anyway because refusing would be another kind of surrender. Nathan's phone started buzzing before he had even stood up. He looked at the screen, then at Erin. Hospital counsel, security, media. Erin's hands trembled. She tucked them under the blanket and pretended she could still control them. Nathan stepped into the kitchen and answered. Erin heard only fragments, but the tone was clear. A meeting was being assembled in real time. People were already making decisions about her life in conference rooms. Within an hour, the clip that had started as a shaky phone video in a parking lot had been reposted with different captions and different angles. Some posts named the hospital. Others named the officer. Others made up details that were not true and spread anyway. On Erin's screen, messages stacked faster than she could open them. Nurses she had not spoken to in years. An old platoon buddy from the army who had tracked her down through a mutual contact. Neighbors, strangers. One message stood out in simple text from an unknown number. "That cop did the same thing to my dad." Erin stared at it until the letters blurred. Nathan came back into the living room and sat beside her laptop, open face lit by a cold glow. He looked like he was watching a vital sign monitor that would not stabilize. "Local reporters are calling," he said. "The station wants a statement." The police department posted a line about an active investigation. Erin swallowed again. "I do not want my face everywhere." Nathan's voice tightened. "It already is." Erin's breath caught. She turned her head toward the window as if looking outside could make the internet less real. On another side of town, Caleb Rourke sat at his own kitchen table, with his uniform shirt unbuttoned at the collar. His hands were steady, but his leg bounced under the table, a relentless rhythm. The television played the same clip on repeat with different commentators talking over it. He watched himself from a stranger's angle. His posture looked bigger than he remembered. His forearm looked tighter. Erin's badge looked clearer than it had looked in his memory. His phone buzzed. A text from his supervisor. "Call me now." Rourke stared at it. He did not call immediately. He scrolled, first fingers moving fast, pulling up the posts, the comments, the stitched reactions. He read people calling him a thug, a bully, a disgrace. He read the ones that landed like blades. Why did he keep choking her after she showed ID? Rourke's jaw tightened. He opened a new message thread and typed with his thumbs like he was firing back at an enemy. She matched the suspect description. They do not show the full context. He deleted it before sending. Context did not exist anymore. Only the clip. He finally called his supervisor. Captain Alvarez answered on the second ring, voice tight. "Rourke, where are you?" "At home. You are being placed on administrative leave effective immediately." Rourke sat up straighter. "For what?" I followed procedure. Alvarez's pause carried exhaustion. "Procedure does not look like that on camera. You understand what this is doing." Rourke's hand clenched into a fist on the table. She matched the suspect. Alvarez's voice flattened. "The suspect is wanted for attempted murder. The suspect is dangerous. That does not authorize you to compress someone's throat in a parking lot without verifying identity. The hospital director is making calls. City council members are making calls. The mayor's office is making calls." Rourke's pulse jumped. "This is politics. This is your file," Alvarez said. And I am not doing this right now. Internal Affairs will contact you. Do not speak to media. Do not post anything. Do you understand?" Rourke stared at the wall. For a moment, he tasted the same thing he had tasted in the parking lot, the bitter metallic edge of being watched. "I understand." Alvarez ended the call without softness. Rourke set his phone down and exhaled through his nose slow. He looked at his hands as if they belonged to someone else. In the precinct building, Internal Affairs did not move like a mob. It moved like a machine. A door opened, a file was pulled, a name typed into a database, a list printed. Lieutenant Dana Sloan sat at a desk under fluorescent lights that made everyone look tired. She watched the video once, then again, then opened Rourke's personnel history and began to read. The screen filled with dates and summaries, complaints, warnings, mandatory retraining completions, notes from supervisors that used careful language to avoid sharp conclusions. Aggressive but effective. Needs improvement in restraint. Monitor. Sloane's face did not change much, but her pen moved. She wrote down what the video made undeniable. Physical force used before verbal engagement. Identity indicators visible. Witnesses present. Refusal to de-escalate. She made a second column and started matching it to older incidents. Traffic stop. Young man. Complaint dismissed. Welfare check. Elderly male. Complaint dismissed. Homeless veteran. Settlement reached. She sat back and stared at the screen. The pattern did not jump out like a surprise. It lay there like a map someone had been ignoring. She picked up her desk phone and called her assistant. "I want those prior complaints pulled. Full documentation. Every report, every body camera file if any exists. Every supervisor note." The assistant hesitated. "Some of those are sealed or were settled." Sloane's voice stayed even. "Pull them anyway. We have public video now. We are not doing summary notes. I want originals." On the street, the internet did what it always did when it smelled blood in the water. People hunted for names, badge numbers, faces. Someone zoomed in on the angle of Rourke's uniform patch. Someone recognized the cruiser number. Someone found an old photograph of him at a department awards ceremony and posted it beside the new clip. Mason Trent saw it all from his apartment, sitting on a couch with the television muted and his phone in his hand. He watched his own face appear in the background of one video half turned indecisive. He replayed the moment in his mind where he had said, "Slow down." He replayed the moment where he had seen the badge and failed to pull Rourke off by force. His stomach felt hollow. His phone rang. An unknown number, he almost ignored it. Then he answered. "Officer Trent," a woman's voice said. "This is Lieutenant Sloan, Internal Affairs. I need you to come in and give a statement." Trent's throat tightened. "Yes, ma'am. Bring any notes. Write down your memory while it is fresh. And do not speak about this to anyone else." Trent swallowed. "Understood." He ended the call and stared at his hands, remembering Aaron's gasps, remembering Lexi's voice, remembering Nathan's eyes. At Aaron's house, Nathan sat with hospital counsel on the speakerphone. Aaron could hear the lawyer's voice through the laptop speakers, crisp and controlled. "The hospital is preparing a statement confirming that Ms. Cross is an employee and was not a suspect. We are also coordinating with security to submit evidence to the police department and the district attorney." Nathan answered in a tone that would have sounded calm to anyone who did not know him. "I want our statement to focus on facts. I want her protected. No details about our home address, no personal information. And I want the hospital to support her medically and psychologically." The lawyer agreed in the way lawyers agree when the cameras are watching. Aaron sat on the couch blanket still around her shoulders and tried to drink water without coughing. Every swallow reminded her of pressure. Her body reacted before her mind did. When Nathan shifted too quickly, she flinched. Nathan noticed. He went still. Aaron closed her eyes and hated herself for it. "It is not you," she said, voice low. Nathan's face tightened. "I know." The doorbell rang. Nathan froze. Aaron's heart slammed. She stared toward the door as if it might open into the parking lot again. Nathan checked the camera feed on his phone. It is Lexi. He opened the door. Lexi stepped in with a paper bag from a diner and a look that said she had not slept. "I brought soup," Lexi said, "and crackers, and I printed screenshots." Nathan took the bag automatically. Screenshots of what? Lexi held up a stack of papers. It was a thread of posts and replies carefully arranged. 3 people have already messaged me. One says Rourke slammed his cousin on the hood of a car for a tail light. Another says he threatened her father during a welfare check. Another says he shoved a veteran behind a closed storefront. Aaron stared at the pages. The names were partially blurred, but the tone was unmistakable. Fear remembered, anger sharpened. Nathan's voice dropped. "They are willing to speak publicly." Lexi nodded. "They are willing to speak to anyone now. They are tired of being quiet." Aaron's mouth went dry. "Why are they telling you?" Lexi's eyes flicked to Aaron's neck. "Because they saw you, and because you have evidence they never had." Aaron looked down at her hands. The tremor had eased, but not vanished. She thought of people she had treated in the ER who came in with bruises and whispered stories, eyes darting to the door, afraid of who might follow. Now she understood a portion of that fear in a new way, and it made her stomach turn. Nathan stood and paced once, then forced himself to stop pacing. He looked like he was trying to keep rage from becoming action. "I'm calling the district attorney's office," he said. The hospital counsel had already suggested it, but Nathan's decision did not come from counsel. It came from watching Aaron breathe like she had been underwater. He stepped into the kitchen, dialed, and waited. The assistant district attorney who answered sounded tired and cautious, like someone who had been fielding calls all night. District Attorney's Office. Nathan introduced himself not with his title first, but with his wife's name. "My wife is Erin Cross. She is the nurse in the video. We want to pursue criminal charges." There was a pause, then a shift in tone. "Dr. Cross, I have seen the clip. We are gathering information." Nathan's voice stayed steady. "You have 17 videos from different angles. You have witnesses. You have medical documentation. We will provide it." Another pause. "We will review the evidence. You understand, I cannot promise an outcome." Nathan's reply was quiet. "I understand what you can and cannot promise. I am telling you what we are doing. We will give you everything." When he ended the call, he stood in the kitchen for a moment, with his hand on the counter, breathing through his nose, trying to keep his hands from shaking. Aaron watched him from the couch. She saw the way his shoulders rose and fell. She saw the way he swallowed hard. He came back and sat beside her, close but careful, as if her skin was fragile. "They are reviewing it," he said. Aaron nodded. She did not trust herself to speak. The news cycle did not pause for anyone's throat pain. By midnight, the story had jumped from local to regional. The anchor voice changed. The graphics became cleaner. The questions became louder. A national panel played the clip and paused it on the moment the badge swung into view. A commentator circled it on screen with a digital marker and spoke with certainty, as if certainty was the only currency that mattered. At the police department, Chief Meredith Halverson stood in a conference room with city staff and union representatives. Her posture was composed, but the tension in the room had a weight. Halvorson listened to the summary from Internal Affairs without interrupting. Then she turned to her public information officer. "We will do a statement in the morning. We will say we are aware of the incident, that the officer is on administrative leave, and that Internal Affairs has opened an investigation." The union rep leaned forward. "Chief, you cannot throw him under the bus publicly." Halvorson's gaze stayed level. "I am not throwing anyone under anything. I am stating facts." The union rep's mouth tightened. He glanced at a tablet showing the view count rising. "That video is killing us." Halverson's voice stayed calm. The incident did that. In his apartment, Caleb Rourke watched the same press coverage, jaw-clenched fingers tapping the table. He kept replaying the moment in his mind where the badge hit his forearm. He remembered thinking stolen. He remembered deciding not to let go. He remembered the crowd and the cameras and the physician's voice. He had never imagined that a hospital parking lot could become a public square. His phone buzzed again. A new number. When he answered, a man's voice came through smooth and confident. "Officer Rourke, this is Daniel Kessler. I represent law enforcement officers in use of force matters. The union asked me to call." Rourke's shoulders eased by a fraction. A lifeline. "I need a lawyer," Rourke said, blunt. Kessler's voice stayed calm. "You need to stop speaking to anyone else. You need to say as little as possible. You also need to understand something. The public will see a clip. We will talk about context and reasonable suspicion." Rourke swallowed. She matched the suspect. Kessler did not argue that point. He shaped it. "You were pursuing a dangerous fugitive. You acted in good faith based on the description and the environment. That is the frame." Rourke leaned forward, tension pressing his spine. "They are saying I choked a nurse." Kessler's pause was short. "We do not use their language. We describe your actions as a control hold during a lawful detention." Rourke stared at the wall. Her badge was visible. Kessler's voice remained steady. "Badges can be stolen. Scrubs can be stolen. We emphasize officer safety. We emphasize uncertainty. We do not mention emotion. We do not mention pride. You understand?" Rourke's fingers curled into his palm. "Yes." Kessler continued. "Internal Affairs will contact you. You will cooperate through counsel. You will not post. You will not reply to comments. You will not speak to reporters. If you receive threats, you document them and you inform me." Rourke listened, absorbing the instructions the way he had always absorbed training. Clear steps, clear rules. When he hung up, he felt a strange calm. Not relief, not innocence, just structure. Back at Aaron's house, the structure was thinner. Aaron's phone kept buzzing. Nathan muted it, then took it into another room. Aaron's body still reacted to every sound. The refrigerator click sounded too loud. The house settling sounded like footsteps. Nathan returned with a notepad and sat near her posture, careful. "I need you to write down what you remember," he said. "In your words. The order, the sensations, everything." Aaron stared at the pad. Her hands tightened under the blanket. "I do not want to relive it." Nathan nodded. He did not push. "Do what you can. We can stop when you need to." Aaron took the pen. The plastic felt slick. Her fingers shook as she wrote the first line. "I stepped outside to breathe." The next line came slower. "A hand grabbed me from behind." As she wrote, the memory sharpened. Concrete cold. The taste of fear. The disbelief. Her chest constricting. Her badge swinging and being dismissed. A tear fell onto the paper. She wiped it away with the back of her hand, angry at it. Nathan did not touch her. He stayed close enough to be there far enough not to trap. Outside, sirens passed on the street, distant and ordinary, and Aaron realized how strange it was that the world could continue so normally when her own body still felt like it was in a chokehold. Somewhere in the city, Lieutenant Sloan stayed at her desk after midnight, pulling old records until her eyes burned. She requested archived footage. She requested reports. She requested supervisor notes. A folder arrived, marked confidential, thick with paperwork that had been filed and forgotten. She opened it and saw familiar language again. Complaint not sustained due to insufficient evidence. She stared at the words for a long moment, then turned back to the screen where Aaron's video waited, paused on the moment the badge was knocked away. Sloan picked up her pen and wrote one more note in the margin of the file, small and precise. "Evidence is now sufficient." She closed the folder, set it on top of the stack, and slid it forward on her desk as if moving it closer made it harder to ignore. The stack of files on Lieutenant Sloan's desk kept growing, each folder heavier than the last, each page another timestamp that said the same thing in different language. Not sustained. Insufficient evidence. Counseling completed. Retraining attended. Monitor. "Evidence is now sufficient," she had written in the margin, and the words felt less like a note and more like a trigger being pulled. 6 weeks after the night in the parking lot, Aaron Cross walked into a windowless hearing room that smelled like copier toner and old coffee. The space was smaller than a courtroom, but the air had the same tight pressure, the same sense that every sentence would be weighed and filed. She wore a high collar that hid most of the bruising, but her voice still carried a roughness that did not belong to her. Nathan walked beside her, one hand near her elbow without touching unless she leaned. His posture was controlled, shoulders square, the way he stood in hospital command meetings when the ER was drowning and someone had to choose what got saved first. At the front of the room sat the disciplinary board. 3 people behind a long table. A retired judge with silver hair and a face that had learned to give nothing away. A senior officer from a neighboring precinct, uniform, immaculate eyes watchful. A civilian oversight representative with a legal pad and a pen already poised. On the right side sat Caleb Rourke with his attorney, Daniel Kessler. Rourke wore his uniform pressed and perfect as if fabric could erase footage. His jaw was tight, his gaze forward, hands clasped on the table. He did not look at Erin when she entered. Kessler leaned in and murmured something to him. Rourke gave a short nod without turning his head. A department prosecutor stood at the left table, a woman in a dark suit with a binder thick enough to bruise a rib if dropped. Her eyes moved over the room once, then settled on the board. The chair of the board, the retired judge, cleared her throat. This proceeding concerns allegations of unlawful assault and excessive use of force by Officer Caleb Rourke during an incident at Pikes Peak Trauma Center. Her voice was flat controlled. It did not rise for drama. The facts will be presented. Witnesses will be heard. Video evidence will be reviewed. The respondent and counsel will have an opportunity to speak. This is an administrative hearing. The prosecutor nodded once, then clicked a remote in her hand. A monitor at the front of the room came alive, paused on a frame that Erin could not look at for more than a second. Erin Cross pressed against a concrete pillar, a forearm across her throat, her badge visible, her hand lifted toward it. Erin felt her body react before her mind did. Her pulse jumped, her fingers curled into her palm. Nathan's hand settled lightly on her knee, steady and warm. She did not look at him, but she felt the anchoring. The prosecutor spoke. "We will begin with the video evidence." The first clip played with audio. The sound of Erin's breath came through the speakers, thin and strained. A voice behind the camera shouted, "You are hurting her." Another voice called, "She works here." Rourke's voice cut through, sharp and official. "Back away," obstructing an officer. Erin heard her own voice on the recording, and it did not sound like her. It sounded smaller. A person reduced to airway and panic. "I work here. Please, my badge." Then the slap of plastic as the badge was knocked aside. The room stayed quiet as the clip ended. The prosecutor did not fill the silence. She clicked again. A second angle. Closer, clearer. The badge swinging. The hospital logo. Erin's photo. Rourke's eyes flicked down for half a second. His hand knocked the badge away with a motion that looked casual on camera, like swatting a fly. A third angle showed Nathan bursting through the doors, sprinting, calling out, "That is my wife." A fourth showed Rourke's refusal to release even after Nathan identified Erin by name, after Lexi shouted, "That is Erin Cross." 17 angles played. Each one a slightly different view of the same act. Each one another witness that did not forget, did not get tired, did not get intimidated. By the time the last clip ended, Erin's throat felt tight again. She swallowed once and pain flared along the bruised tissue. Nathan's hand lifted and hovered near her shoulder, then settled gently, giving pressure without trapping. The chair of the board spoke. Medical evidence. The prosecutor switched to photos taken under bright clinic lighting. Erin's neck purple and red, the shape of an arm visible in the bruising pattern. The next image showed her throat examination notes. Hoarseness. Pain on swallowing. Tenderness along the anterior neck. Anxiety symptoms, sleep disruption. Erin's eyes stayed on the table edge. She could feel the room looking at her without looking at her face. The prosecutor turned a page in her binder. Ms. Cross was evaluated the night of the incident. She was advised to monitor for delayed swelling, headache, dizziness, and changes in voice or breathing. She was prescribed pain management and referred for trauma counseling. She let that sit, then looked directly at the board. This was not a brief incidental contact. The duration of applied pressure, the refusal to adjust or release despite visible identification and multiple confirmations, is the central issue. Kessler stood smoothly. "Madam Chair, if I may. My client acted in good faith based on a description of a dangerous fugitive wanted for attempted murder. The resemblance between Ms. Cross and the suspect was striking. It was dusk. The hospital entrance was a high-traffic environment. Officer Rourke made a reasonable judgment call to secure a potential threat. His voice had the calm confidence of someone who had said similar sentences many times. The prosecutor did not argue the resemblance. She did not need to. She stepped closer to her table and spoke with the clean precision of a scalpel. Reasonable would have been verbal engagement. Reasonable would have been requesting identification before physical force. Reasonable would have been looking at the identification provided. Reasonable would have been listening to the witnesses who immediately confirmed Ms. Cross as hospital staff. Reasonable would have been de-escalation once the badge and the hospital director's identification were presented. She glanced at Rourke. "You did not do those things." Rourke's jaw tightened. He stayed still. The chair nodded toward the prosecutor. "Call your first witness." The prosecutor called Mason Trent. Trent walked in, wearing a suit that did not fit his shoulders, as if he had borrowed it from someone with a different life. He raised his right hand, swore to tell the truth, then sat at the witness chair with his spine rigid. The prosecutor's tone softened slightly, not in sympathy, but in clarity. "Officer Trent, were you present during the incident involving Ms. Cross?" "Yes." "What was the nature of the call that brought you and Officer Rourke to the hospital?" "We received a dispatch about a possible sighting of Kara Wainwright near the emergency entrance. Attempted murder warrant. Description was female, brown hair, medium build, dark clothing." "Did you and Officer Rourke request backup?" "No." Trent's voice caught on that word. He swallowed. "I asked about backup. Officer Rourke decided to approach without it." "Did you observe Miss Cross before contact?" "Yes." "She exited the hospital. She appeared to be wearing hospital scrubs. She was alone. She was walking normally, no visible attempt to flee." "What happened next?" "Officer Rourke approached her from behind and physically detained her. He pinned her against a concrete pillar and applied a control hold." The prosecutor's gaze stayed steady. "A control hold applied to which area of Ms. Cross's body?" Trent hesitated. His eyes flicked toward Rourke, then away. "Her neck." "Did Miss Cross state her identity?" "Yes." "She said she worked there. She said she was a nurse. Did she show identification?" "Yes." "Her badge was visible. She tried to bring it forward. What did Officer Rourke do when the badge was presented?" "He said it could be stolen. He knocked it away." The room felt colder. Trent's hands tightened on the edges of the chair. "Did witnesses intervene?" "Yes." "Several bystanders. One nurse identified Miss Cross by name. They told Officer Rourke she worked there." "Did Officer Rourke adjust his use of force?" "No." Nathan's breath moved slowly beside Erin. Erin kept her eyes down. "Did Dr. Nathan Cross arrive?" "Yes." "He came out of the hospital. He identified Ms. Cross as his wife and as a nurse. He told Officer Rourke to let her breathe." "Did Officer Rourke release?" "He delayed. He loosened briefly, then maintained control. Eventually, he released." Kessler rose for cross-examination. His tone stayed polite. "Officer Trent, the suspect in question, was wanted for attempted murder, correct?" "Correct." "And the description matched Ms. Cross?" "In general, features yes." "In a high-stress environment, it is reasonable to secure a suspect quickly to protect officer safety, correct?" Trent's throat moved. "It can be." Kessler nodded as if satisfied. "And you did not physically intervene to remove Officer Rourke's arm, correct?" Trent's face tightened. "No." Kessler let that hang, then sat down. The prosecutor did not pounce on Trent. She moved to the next witness, Marcus Hale. A man in his 20s stepped to the stand. He wore a simple shirt sleeves rolled up jaw set, like he had practiced holding it that way in a mirror. Erin recognized him from one of the screenshots Lexi had printed. The taillight stop. Marcus swore in and sat down. The prosecutor spoke. "Mr. Hale, did you have prior contact with Officer Rourke?" "Yes." "When?" "March, a few years back. Traffic stop. Broken taillight." "Describe what happened." Marcus's hands rested on his thighs, fingers flexing. "He told me to step out." "I did. I put my hands where he could see them. I asked why I was stopped. He said I was acting nervous. Then he shoved me down, put his knee in my back. Said I was resisting. I was not." "Did you file a complaint?" "Yes." "What was the outcome?" "They said insufficient evidence." Kessler stood face calm. "Mr. Hale, were you arrested that night?" "No." "Were you charged with any crime?" "No." "Then your complaint involved your perception of force, not a criminal finding." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "It involved bruises on my ribs and my face on asphalt." Kessler smiled without warmth. "You have no video." Marcus leaned forward slightly. "No. Because nobody filmed it. That is why I'm here now." The prosecutor called the next witness. Evelyn Park. A woman in her 40s took the stand posture rigid. She held a folder of printed emails and complaint forms like armor. Aaron could see her hands shaking slightly as she opened the folder. The prosecutor asked her to describe the welfare check. Evelyn's voice stayed steady but thin. "I called because my father was not answering. He is 76. He lives alone. I asked for someone to knock and make sure he was okay, and Officer Rourke responded, 'Yes.' What happened?" He raised his voice at my father. My father was confused and scared. He did not want a stranger in his home. Officer Rourke pushed inside, grabbed his arm, left bruises shaped like fingers. He said my father was wasting police time. "Did you file a complaint?" "Yes." "I tried to press charges. Outcome?" "Dismissed." She lifted one of the papers. "They said there were no witnesses." Her eyes went to the board. "I was the witness. They told me that was not enough." Kessler cross-examined her careful and controlled probing for inconsistencies. Evelyn did not break. She stayed with her memory anchored in details a person does not invent. The color of the bruises, the sound of her father's voice, the way Rourke stood too close filling the doorway. The last witness from the pattern took the stand. Noah Reyes, a homeless veteran. He wore a clean jacket that looked new, as if someone had bought it for him to be taken seriously. His eyes carried a tiredness Aaron recognized from patients who had learned that begging for help often made things worse. Noah described sleeping on a bench behind a closed storefront, the cold biting through his clothes, the way he had tried to keep his hands visible when the police lights hit him. He described Rourke grabbing him, shoving him into a wall, threatening arrest. He described a split lip and the taste of blood. He described signing paperwork he did not fully understand just to make it stop. Kessler tried to reduce Noah's credibility, asking about mental health, about prior charges, about instability. Noah answered with quiet bluntness. "I served 2 tours. I know the difference between a threat and a man who needs to feel powerful." The room went still. The prosecutor did not press further. She had what she needed. Then she called Officer Caleb Rourke. Rourke stood and walked to the witness chair with a measured pace. His uniform was perfect. His expression was carefully neutral. He swore and sat down and clasped his hands as if he were about to be evaluated on posture alone. Kessler began with direct examination, building the frame he had described on the phone call. "Officer Rourke, described the call you received that evening." Rourke's voice was steady, practiced. "We received information about a suspect wanted for attempted murder near the emergency entrance. The suspect was described as female, brown hair, medium build, dark clothing. I responded. What was your assessment when you saw Miss Cross?" She matched the description. She was alone. The hospital entrance is a high-risk environment. I made a decision to detain for verification. Kessler nodded. "Did you intend to harm Ms. Cross?" Number. My intent was to secure a potential threat and maintain control. The prosecutor stood for cross-examination. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. She walked a step closer, eyes on Rourke like a surgeon lining up a cut. "Officer Rourke, Did you speak to Ms. Cross before placing your arm on her throat? No. Did you ask her name? No. Did you request identification before applying force? No. When Ms. Cross stated she was a nurse and that she worked at the hospital, did you pause to verify? Number 1 continued to secure the detention. When Ms. Cross brought her badge into your line of sight, what did you do? I assessed it. I considered that it could be stolen. Did you verify whether it was stolen? No. Did you have any evidence that the suspect had stolen a hospital badge? No. The prosecutor's voice stayed even, each question another pressure point. Did witnesses tell you she worked there? Yes. Did a nurse identify Ms. Cross by name? Yes. Did Dr. Nathan Cross identify Ms. Cross by name and title? Yes. Did you release her immediately upon hearing that information? No. Rourke's jaw tightened. I needed to maintain control until I could be certain. The prosecutor tilted her head slightly. Certain of what? Certain that she was not the suspect. How were you going to become certain? By calling it in. Did you call it in before applying force? No. Did you call it in when she presented her badge? No. Did you call it in when witnesses identified her? No. Rourke's face flushed a shade darker. I was following my training. The prosecutor's eyes did not move. Your training instructs you to apply pressure to the neck of an unarmed, compliant person who is presenting identification. Kessler rose. Objection. Argumentative. The chair's voice came immediately. Sustained. Rephrase. The prosecutor nodded once without turning. Officer Rourke, what part of your training tells you to ignore identification? Rourke's hands clenched, then unclenched. My training tells me to maintain control of the situation and ensure officer safety. The prosecutor stepped closer by a fraction. At what point did Ms. Cross pose a safety threat? She matched a suspect wanted for attempted murder. At what point did Ms. Cross attempt to flee? She did not. At what point did Ms. Cross attempt to strike you? She did not. At what point did Ms. Cross reach for a weapon? She did not. The prosecutor's voice stayed flat, the questions hitting with a rhythm that left little room for escape. So the threat was your assumption. Rourke's eyes flicked toward Kessler, then back. The threat was the suspect description. The prosecutor clicked her remote. The monitor displayed a still frame zoomed in on Aaron's badge clear enough to read the hospital logo and Aaron's name. Is this the badge you saw? Rourke stared at the screen for a second too long. Yes. So you saw her name and photograph while your arm was across her throat. Rourke's nostrils flared. I saw a badge. I did not have time to fully assess. The prosecutor did not argue. She asked another question quieter. How long did you maintain pressure after you saw the badge? Rourke's eyes hardened. Seconds. I do not know. The prosecutor turned a page. The videos show it was longer than seconds. Do you dispute the video? Rourke's lips pressed together. No. Then we can use the video as our clock. The chair watched Rourke with an expression that did not change. The senior officer board member shifted slightly in his seat. The civilian oversight rep wrote something down, pen moving fast. The prosecutor ended with one last question delivered without theatrics. Officer Rourke, did you believe you were wrong at any point during the detention? Rourke's pause lasted long enough that the room seemed to lean in. I believed I was doing my job. The prosecutor nodded once, as if that answer had been expected. No further questions. When testimony ended, the board took a recess to deliberate. Aaron and Nathan stepped into the hallway. The corridor lights were harsh. The air smelled like disinfectant. It reminded Aaron of hospital hallways, but without the purpose. No monitors, no medication carts, no calls overhead, just waiting. Nathan leaned against the wall and stared at a point on the floor. Aaron sat on a bench, hands folded in her lap. She kept her shoulders tight as if letting them drop would invite collapse. Lexi stood a few feet away, arms crossed, eyes scanning the hallway like she was on watch. Aaron's phone buzzed. She did not check it. Nathan spoke without looking up. He did not say he was wrong. Aaron's voice came out rough. He said he was doing his job. Nathan's jaw tightened. He pushed off the wall and paced 2 steps, then forced himself to stop. Aaron watched him do it, the same restraint he used in trauma rooms when anger could not be allowed to interfere with care. Minutes passed, then more. Voices drifted from other rooms. Footsteps. Doors opening and closing. Erin's body kept expecting a sound that meant danger, and every time someone approached her, muscles tightened. Finally, the hearing room door opened. The board members filed back in. Erin stood legs steady enough to hold her. Nathan's hand brushed her back light. They took their seats again. Rourke sat at his table, posture stiff. Kessler leaned in, murmured something. Rourke did not react. The chair cleared her throat. After review of video evidence, witness testimony, medical documentation, and the respondent's statements, this board finds that Officer Caleb Rourke used excessive force and committed unlawful assault during the detention of Erin Cross. Erin's breath caught. She held it, then released it slowly through her nose. Nathan's hand found hers under the table and squeezed once firm. The chair continued, voice steady. This board also recognizes a documented pattern of complaints involving Officer Rourke that reflect consistent failures in restraint and judgment. Rourke stared forward, face tight. His hands were clenched into fists on the table. The chair read the consequences with the same tone she had used to read everything else. 1-year suspension without pay. Mandatory anger management counseling. Mandatory advanced de-escalation training. Probationary status requirements upon any return to duty. Recommendation to the District Attorney's Office for misdemeanor assault review. No cheer rose, no applause, just a tight silence that felt like a door closing. Rourke's face remained set, anger held in place by discipline. Kessler leaned toward him again, whispering, already working angles. Erin stood when the chair concluded. She did not look at Rourke. She did not need to. She felt Nathan guide her toward the exit, his body placed subtly between her and the cameras she could already hear outside the building. In the hallway, reporters waited with microphones and bright lights that made Erin's eyes ache. Someone called her name. "Miss Cross, how do you feel?" Erin paused. The question hit her like a hand reaching for her throat, not violent but invasive. She turned her head just enough to face the nearest camera. Nathan stayed beside her silent present. Erin's voice came out rough, but it held. "I feel tired." She swallowed, winced, then continued. "I want to go back to work. I want to do my job without fearing the parking lot." She turned away then, and Nathan guided her through the side door into daylight that felt too bright and too ordinary for what had just happened. The side door clicked shut behind Erin, and Nathan sealing out the reporters' voices like a blast door. Sunlight struck the pavement in a way that felt wrong for the kind of morning they were having. The sky was clean. The city moved as if nothing had happened. Cars passed. A dog barked somewhere down the block. Someone laughed on a sidewalk with a coffee in hand. Erin stood still for a moment and listened to her own breathing, measuring it the way she measured a patient's vitals. In through the nose, out through the mouth, slow, controlled. Her throat still ached, but it held. She tasted the sharp edge of adrenaline anyway, the leftover chemical that did not care that the threat had ended. Nathan's keys jingled as he unlocked the car. The sound made Erin flinch. She hated the flinch. She climbed in and kept her eyes on the dashboard until the tremor in her hand settled. Nathan drove without speaking. He was not avoiding the conversation. He was containing it like pressure behind a valve. Erin watched his knuckles whiten and relax on the steering wheel in a slow cycle. The administrator in him was already calculating next steps, timelines, calls. The physician in him was still staring at an airway that had been compromised. The husband in him had nowhere to put the rage. At a stoplight, Nathan finally spoke. "Do you want to go home, or do you want to go somewhere quiet first?" Erin swallowed. The movement pulled pain through her throat. "Home," she said. "Quiet." Nathan nodded once and drove on. At home, Erin stepped out of her shoes by the door, as if she were clocking out of a shift. She walked to the kitchen sink, filled a glass with water, and drank in small sips. Each swallow still carried a sting, but she refused to let it make her stop. She placed the glass down and gripped the edge of the counter, steadying herself. Nathan's phone buzzed 3 times in a row. He looked at the screen, then set the phone face down, as if putting it away could buy them a few minutes of peace. Erin watched him. "You should answer," she said. He met her eyes. "Not right now." Erin exhaled slowly. She crossed the living room and sat on the couch where the blanket still lay folded from the previous weeks. She did not pull it over her shoulders this time. She did not want to feel wrapped. She wanted space around her. Nathan sat across from her, not too close posture careful. "I know the outcome is not what some people wanted," he said. Erin's gaze stayed on the floor. "It is what it is." Nathan's jaw tightened. "He is suspended, not gone." Erin lifted her eyes. "I can breathe when I talk about it now. That is more than I had in the parking lot." Nathan's face softened for a fraction, then tightened again. "They recommended misdemeanor assault review. The district attorney will decide." Erin nodded once. She did not let her mind run too far. The hearing had been a room full of air that still felt thin. She was not ready to live in legal timelines. She wanted one normal hour, one cup of water that did not hurt going down. Nathan's phone buzzed again. This time he picked it up. His expression shifted as he read. "Internal Affairs wants your statement finalized," he said. "They also want the hospital footage from our exterior cameras." Erin's throat tightened. She cleared it gently. "Give it to them." Nathan nodded. He stood and walked to the kitchen, speaking quietly into the phone. Erin heard only pieces. Evidence. Chain of custody. Witness list. Medical documentation. She sat in the living room and listened to the house settle around her. The walls were still the same. The couch was still the same. But her body no longer believed that safety was automatic. When Nathan came back, he carried his laptop and a folder of papers. He set them on the coffee table, then hesitated. "If you want, we can leave this for tomorrow." Erin surprised herself by shaking her head. "Number. Do it now, while it is clear." They worked in silence at first. Nathan typed. Erin spoke when she could. She described the cold bite of concrete, the smell of exhaust in the lot, the pressure across her throat, the way her badge slapped against her chest and then swung away when it was knocked. She described the exact words she remembered. "Do not move. Shut up. Stolen." Nathan asked questions the way he asked in a clinical interview, gentle but exact. "How long before you could inhale? Did you feel dizzy? Did you see spots? Did you lose track of time?" Erin answered in short sentences, conserving her voice. In the days after the hearing, the story continued to ripple outward. The videos remained online, clipped and reposted, slowed down and zoomed in. Erin stopped searching her name. She stopped reading comments. Nathan tried at first to keep up with every mention, every headline, every angle. It took him one night of scrolling to realize it was a second job that would never end. He shut the laptop at midnight and sat back, eyes closed. "It is endless," he said. Erin's voice was quiet. "Then stop feeding it." Nathan looked at her, then nodded as if permission had been granted. At the hospital, changes began to appear in practical ways, the way changes always appeared in a place built on protocols. New lighting fixtures went up near the ER entrance. Security started doing visible passes, not just quiet loops in the shadows. A staff escort option appeared on the internal bulletin board. Erin's badge, once a simple piece of plastic, became part of a new check-in routine after dark. Not because the badge had failed her, but because the world had. In the city, the police department made moves that were both public and careful. Body cameras became the center of meetings, budgets, arguments. The chief held briefings with clipped statements and flat expressions. The union pushed back in closed rooms, voices tight. No one said Erin's name in those meetings without knowing a camera might be pointed at them. Erin watched some of it from her couch with a mug of tea warming her hands, the television volume low. She could see her own video paused on screens behind anchors. Her face blurred sometimes, her badge circled in red. She turned the television off. The first time Erin tried to leave the house alone after the hearing, she made it to the end of the driveway and stopped. The street was quiet. A neighbor watered plants. A car rolled by at a normal speed. Her lungs tightened anyway. Her heart picked up pace as if the parking lot were just out of frame. Erin stood there and let the moment pass through her. She put both feet flat. She focused on sensory details. The smell of cut grass, the warmth of sunlight on her forearm, the weight of her phone in her pocket. Then she walked to her car. She opened the door slowly. She sat down. She closed it and sat for a moment with her hands on her thighs, waiting for her body to stop expecting impact. Nathan watched from the kitchen window. He did not follow her. He did not call out. He let her do it. A week later, Erin met with a trauma counselor in an office that smelled faintly of lavender. Erin sat upright on the chair, hands folded, expression controlled. The counselor spoke softly. Erin answered with the same calm she used with patients. How did it feel? Erin's eyes stayed on the rug, like being reduced, like I was not a person, like my words did not exist. What was the worst moment? Erin's throat moved. When I showed him who I was, and he chose to ignore it. She did not cry in the office. She cried later in the shower, where the water could hide it. Nathan did not ask. He only left a towel warmed in the dryer on the sink and stepped away to give her space. 3 days before Erin returned to work, a message came from the district attorney's office through Nathan, not as a promise, not as a celebration, but as a logistical fact. The case had been reviewed. Documents had been requested. Witnesses would be contacted. Erin would need to be available for statements when scheduled. Erin accepted it with a quiet nod and went back to folding her scrubs. On the morning she returned to Pikes Peak Trauma Center, the building looked the same from the outside. Glass and concrete. Ambulance bay doors. The same hard geometry that housed so much chaos. Erin parked in a staff lot under new lights that made the asphalt look pale. Her hands hovered near the steering wheel for a moment, then she turned off the engine and stepped out. The air smelled like exhaust and winter sun. It made her think of the parking lot again, but the memory did not knock her down. It hovered, waiting for an opening. Erin kept moving. Inside, the ER sounded like it always did. Beeping monitors. Overhead pages, footsteps. The constant shuffle of gurneys and the quiet urgency of voices. Erin's badge sat clipped to her scrub top, facing outward. She had chosen a high collar again, more for her own sense of armor than for anyone else. Her neck no longer showed bruises, but she could still feel phantom pressure when she thought about it too long. She pushed through the staff door into the break room. Conversation stopped. Then someone started clapping softly at first, then more voices joining. The applause was not loud. ER staff did not do loud celebration. It was careful, like hands on a patient who had just come back from a code. Lexi stepped forward first. "You are back," Lexi said. Erin nodded. Her mouth tried to form a smile and succeeded only partly. "I am back." Lexi hugged her gentle. Erin's body tensed on reflex, then eased when she recognized the pattern of the touch. She let herself exhale. A trauma tech cleared his throat. "We saved your locker," he said, as if anyone would have dared not to. Someone else muttered a curse aimed at the universe. A nurse touched Erin's shoulder lightly and asked if she needed anything. Erin shook her head because needing things felt dangerous. She walked out onto the floor. The first hour was a test of muscle memory. Erin moved the way she always had. She scanned the board. She triaged. She gave clear orders with calm voice. Her hands found IVs and gauze and monitors without hesitation. Patients did not know the story of her throat unless they recognized her face. Most of them did not. Most of them only knew the story of their own pain. Mid-morning, Erin entered a room where a woman in her 50s lay on a bed, one hand pressed to her chest, breathing fast and shallow. The monitor showed a rapid heart rate, but the EKG was clean. Erin pulled a stool close and sat lowering herself to eye level. "Tell me what you are feeling." The woman's eyes were wide and wet. "I cannot catch my breath. My chest is tight. I feel like something is going to happen." Erin nodded slowly. "We are going to slow it down together. Look at me. Inhale for 4. Hold. Exhale for 6. The woman tried and failed, breath-shaking. Erin kept her voice steady. Again, with me. Inhale, hold, exhale. The rhythm began to land. The woman's shoulders dropped by degrees. Her eyes tracked Erin's face. Recognition sparked. "You are her," she whispered. Erin's hands paused for a fraction, then continued adjusting the oxygen cannula gentle. "Who?" The woman swallowed. "The nurse. The one on the news. The cop in the parking lot." Erin felt the room tighten. She took a slow breath and kept her expression neutral, not because she was hiding, but because she was keeping the patient in front of her from being swallowed by Erin's story. "Yes," Erin said quietly. The woman's eyes filled. "I saw it. Everyone did. I was so angry I could not sleep." Erin nodded once. "Right now, we focus on you. Your heart is safe. Your body is in alarm mode. We will bring it down." The woman's breath steadied more. She reached out and touched Erin's hand lightly as if asking permission. "You are brave," the woman said. Erin did not correct her with a speech. She only answered with a truth that fit in the space. "I am here." The woman nodded as if that was enough. Later, Erin stepped out of the room and leaned against the hallway wall for a second, eyes closed. The sound of monitors and voices rolled over her like a familiar ocean. Her throat felt tight not from damage but from emotion held back. Nathan appeared at the far end of the corridor, walking past the ER doors with a tablet in hand. He slowed when he saw Erin. He did not approach immediately. He gave her a look, a question without words. Erin straightened and gave him a small nod. "I am okay." It was not a promise. It was a signal. Nathan's mouth tightened with relief and something else. He nodded back and walked on. He found excuses to pass the ER again that day. Erin noticed each time. She did not call him on it. She understood. The parking lot had put a hook in him too. When Erin's shift ended, the sky outside the windows had darkened into the early blue of evening. The ER did not care. It kept pulsing, feeding on time indifferent to clocks. Erin finished charting, washed her hands, and grabbed her bag. Lexi caught her at the staff door. "Want me to walk you to your car?" Erin's first instinct was to say no. She wanted control. She wanted normal. Then she remembered the way her body had tightened at her own driveway. "Yes," she said. Lexi nodded once as if relieved not to argue. They walked together toward the exit. Erin's pulse rose as the glass doors came into view. Through the glass she could see the canopy and the lot beyond it lit hard. She could see the concrete pillar, the exact pillar. Erin stopped with her hand on the door. Lexi watched her face. "We can use another exit." Erin kept her gaze forward. She did not move for several seconds. "No," she said, "not tonight." She pushed the door open and stepped outside. Cold air hit her skin. The smell of asphalt and distant exhaust met her. The lot was quiet. A few staff cars, a security guard walking a slow-loop radio clipped to his shoulder. The new lights washed everything in clear brightness. Erin walked toward the pillar. Lexi stayed a step behind, silent, letting Erin lead. When Erin reached the spot, she stopped. She looked down at the pavement where her knees had buckled. She remembered the pressure and the sound of her own breath and the way the world had narrowed. Her throat tightened. She put one hand on the pillar palm flat on the cold concrete. Her breath came fast for a moment, then she forced it into a rhythm. Inhale. Hold, exhale. She stood there until her pulse slowed. Then she lifted her hand from the concrete and turned toward her car. From a third-floor window, Nathan watched the lot the way he watched monitors. His chest felt tight as he saw Erin stop at the pillar, then stand steady, then move again. He did not wave. He did not call. He only watched her walk with her shoulders back, and he let the air out of his lungs slowly as if he had been holding it since that night. Erin drove home on familiar streets, headlights sweeping over empty sidewalks. She kept both hands on the wheel, her jaw unclenched 1 millimeter at a time. 3 days after Erin's assault, Kara Wainwright was found in a motel outside Pueblo, registered under a name that did not match her face. She had been living on vending machine snacks and stolen minutes of sleep. She had kept her hair pulled back and her eyes down. She had stayed close to places with constant traffic, constant noise. 2 officers approached her room at dawn with backup staged at the end of the corridor. Their body cameras were on small red lights glowing. They did not rush the door like a battering ram. They took positions, angles, covered voices calm. "Police," one officer called. "Kara Wainwright, come to the door with your hands visible." The door stayed shut for a long moment. Then it opened slowly. Kara stepped out with her hands up. Her eyes flicked over the hallway, calculating. She looked tired, cornered, dangerous in a quiet way. The officer's voice stayed even. "Do not move. Keep your hands up. Turn around slowly." Kara complied. They cuffed her without a struggle. They read her rights. They verified her identity through dispatch. Their hands never went to her throat. Their tone never rose to panic. They did their job like a procedure, not a punishment. Kara was led down the motel corridor and into a waiting cruiser. The morning light did not care who she was. When Erin saw the footage later, she watched it without sound. She stared at the calm approach, the controlled steps, the verification, the absence of violence. She did not say anything. She did not need to. Nathan watched her face and understood what she was holding. In the weeks after the hearing, Marcus Hale started meeting with other people who had stories of police encounters that ended in bruises and paperwork that went nowhere. The meetings took place in a community center room with folding chairs and a smell of stale coffee. Marcus stood at the front, sometimes hands clasped, speaking without theatrics. "You do not have to be alone with it," he told them. Evelyn Park began showing up at city meetings and elder care advocacy groups carrying the same folder of documents she had brought to the hearing. She did not shout. She did not posture. She asked questions with the calm persistence of someone who had learned that politeness did not mean surrender. Noah Reyes started spending time at a Veterans Resource Center helping other vets navigate the thin line between trouble and survival. He spoke to them about keeping hands visible, about staying calm, about documenting when they could. He spoke with the tired authority of someone who had been disbelieved too many times. On the other side of the city, Caleb Rourke sat in a narrow office with a counselor on a Tuesday afternoon mandated by the board's terms. The office walls were beige. The counselor's voice was gentle. Rourke's posture was rigid, hands folded, as if restraint were the only thing keeping him from unraveling. "What did you feel in that parking lot?" the counselor asked. Rourke stared at the carpet. "Threat. What threat?" "The suspect description." The counselor waited. Silence stretched. "What did you feel when people told you she was a nurse?" Rourke's jaw tightened. "They were interfering." "What did you feel when her husband said who she was?" Rourke's eyes narrowed. "He was trying to intimidate me." The counselor's tone stayed calm. "And what did you feel when you saw her badge?" Rourke did not answer for a long moment. His throat moved once. "I felt like I could not be wrong." The counselor wrote something down. The pen scratched softly. Rourke's attendance at counseling became inconsistent after that. He missed a session, then another. He told himself it was scheduling. Then he told himself it was pointless. He filed an appeal, arguing that the punishment was excessive, and the board had been influenced by public pressure. The denial arrived in an envelope that looked ordinary enough to carry junk mail. He opened it at his kitchen table and read the first paragraph twice. He stared at the words until they lost meaning, then folded the paper and set it down with careful precision. His uniform hung in a closet, pressed and untouched. The silence in his apartment felt louder than the precinct had ever been. At the department, the 1-year suspension became something else in practice. Without completed counseling and training, the path back narrowed and then closed. It did not end in a dramatic firing scene. It ended in paperwork and compliance boxes unchecked in a career that could not be justified on paper anymore. Rourke stopped answering calls from coworkers. He stopped watching the news. He tried to live inside his own narrative where he had been doing his job. The city did not live there with him. Erin kept living in the real one. She worked shifts no one wanted the late nights when the ER turned into a triage line, the weekends when alcohol and speed and bad luck arrived in waves. She found her rhythm again. It was not identical to before. She checked exits more. She listened for footsteps behind her. She asked security to walk with staff in groups without apology. She trained new nurses with a sharper emphasis on keeping heads up in hallways and lots the way she once trained medics to keep eyes on the perimeter even while working a patient. Her compassion did not fade. If anything, it found new depth in the patients who came in shaking, whispering, afraid of the world outside their own skin. Erin understood fear in her bones now. She did not romanticize it. She treated it like another injury, invisible but real. One night, months later, Erin stood at the ambulance bay and watched paramedics roll in a young man with a broken arm and a cut along his scalp. He kept flinching every time someone touched him. His eyes darted to every uniform. Erin knelt beside the gurney and spoke low. "You are safe here. Nobody is going to grab you." He stared at her, not convinced but listening. She looked at his wristband, then back to his face. "Tell me your name." He swallowed. "Devin." "Devin," Erin said. "I am Erin. You can look at my badge. You can ask questions. I will answer." His breath eased by degrees. His shoulders loosened. Erin stood and moved with the team steady. She did not think about Rourke in that moment. She thought about Devin's eyes and the way fear can make you stop breathing, even when nobody's hand is on your throat. After that shift, Erin walked out through the same glass doors again. She did not avoid them. She did not dramatize them. She treated them like a doorway in a building where she worked. The pillar stood where it always had. Concrete does not move. Memory does. She passed it without stopping this time. Her breath stayed steady. Her keys did not shake in her hand. Lexi walked beside her, talking about staffing and charting, and a trauma surgeon who always ordered supplies at the last second. Normal complaints. Normal conversation. The kind of everyday noise that made life feel like life again. Nathan waited in his office on the third-floor, lights on paperwork spread across his desk. He watched Erin cross the lot through the window and felt the familiar tightness in his throat. It never fully left. He accepted that. He did not need it to leave to keep going. Erin got into her car, started the engine, and drove home. She did not become a symbol in her own mind. She did not wake up wanting to be a headline. She woke up wanting to do her job, to keep people breathing, to keep the line from breaking. The video had made her visible, but it did not define the whole of her. The ER did. On a night when the trauma bays were full and the waiting room overflowed, Erin stood at the nurse's station and looked at the board. Names, ages, room numbers. A map of pain. She clipped her badge, straight-checked her gloves, and stepped back into the flow. The doors hissed shut behind her like a hatch. Monitors beeped. Voices called out. The work came in waves, relentless and familiar. Erin moved forward anyway.